Coming up on This American Land.
If we don't have this wild space, we're going to be lost as humans.
Celebrating the Appalachian Trail, whether you live near it or you're just passing through. We'll meet the people with a long view of protecting every footstep.
Plant, mulch, water, fence.
And repeat 100 times. Volunteers are working to reshape Colorado's Yampa River to keep it from being stressed by drought and climate change.
We have one daughter. She's now 9 years old. So if she wants to come back and farm, she'll be more than able to.
Women have always shared in the risks and rewards of running a family farm. They're finally being recognized for doing one of the most important jobs on earth. And Spadefoot toads know the sound of love when they hear it. Picking a partner to protect the future. So settle in. This American Land starts right now. Funding for this program provided by the Walton Family Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.
Hello and welcome to This American Land. I'm your host, Ed Arnett. We've got some great stories for you today about the conservation of America's natural resources, our landscapes, waters, and wildlife, and the people who are dedicated to conservation. In our first story today, we're going to North Carolina, to the Appalachian Trail that stretches more than 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine, and nearly all of it on public land. Conservationists are protecting the trail and the landscape around it with support from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And we sent a crew there to find out how they're doing it.
It's nice to get out here in a bit of solitude and get some fresh air, get away from all the city noise and all the traffic, really get to see a little bit of nature.
My hair gets soft, skin clears up. We really get out here to just be in the quiet.
The Roan Highlands are renowned for the beauty. There's not a lot of development within eyesight at the top of the mountain. There's not many places like that left.
When you're up in the highlands, you can look back and see where you've been and look in front and see where you're gonna go. And a lot of times when you're hiking in the woods, you don't get that same sense.
We live in the city, and so that's already all overtaken. And to be able to come up here and have some place to go, if we don't have this wild space, we're gonna be lost as humans.
The Appalachian Trail is over 2,000 miles long. A lot of that is in the woods, but this section here in the highlands of Roan, it crosses 17 miles of grassy balls. So you have amazing views through this section. I'm Jay Lutzy. I'm the board president of Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. It's taken decades and multiple partners to put the Appalachian Trail in its optimal location. So you're always trying to buy the tract of land that gives the best view, that gives the best hiking experience. So this is Hump Mountain, and the Appalachian Trail is right at the top of that ridge. I work for an organization that takes financial risks. When we see a conservation need, we're driven to buy the property to protect a national park or a national forest. So this is the property we purchased. That's 324 acres, and that corner is there. You can see it comes right up within 110 feet of the Appalachian Trail. So you can imagine if this were a neighborhood, you'd be hearing voices and dogs barking and televisions while hiking the trail. It's too close for comfort for hikers. We went ahead and jumped off a cliff and borrowed $1 million to buy the property. And Land and Water Conservation Fund will reimburse us for that loan.
So the Land and Water Conservation Fund is a 53-year-old program that is funded by offshore oil and gas revenues. My name is Tom Kors with the Nature Conservancy that use that federal revenue source to conserve lands within the United States. The Land and Water Conservation Fund provides money for communities to reimburse them for projects that involve cultural and conservation, from local ballparks to large national parks and everything in between. It's a remarkable tool that is used in every county and every state across the United States. The Appalachian Trail is one of our many national trails that unifies many rural areas and brings
hikers into local communities that otherwise wouldn't see some of this traffic. And we've been very fortunate to have these local communities embrace the hikers that come through. Tennessee is a magnet for outdoor recreation. It generates $21 billion annually that contributes to the economy, and there are 188,000 jobs connected to outdoor recreation in the state of Tennessee.
The Appalachian Trail is a huge asset to pretty much every community that we have around here. It's not just about enjoying your assets, but you also need to provide for it too. So you need to be able to provide the food these people might need coming in off the Appalachian Trail. They need to replenish their packs, or they just want to sleep in a nice bed for one night. We need to take what we have and go with it because there's so much to offer in this region.
This is a blaze. This is what you follow down the AT to keep you straight on where you're going.
Betty, what do you feel about the overnight in the cold weather?
I think the shelter's going to be very cold.
If there was more development and if the appeal to be out on the Appalachian Trail were to fall, it would definitely hurt any business, especially ours. Yeah, it's very important to protect the areas around here. They need to keep acquiring that land because otherwise somebody's going to build something there.
I want to have a place for my kids to be able to come and their kids to be able to come. So it's hugely important.
We're ready. If this area was developed like a lot of other places are, then it would be gone forever. Because once it's developed, you're not going to get it back.
You can imagine what this would look like with roads carving it up and houses dotting the ridgeline instead of the Appalachian Trail, and those are the stakes. So this is a Land and Water Conservation Fund success story. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is something that has been taken for granted across the country, and we're working on getting local communities to voice to their members of Congress why it's so important. Without the Land and Water Conservation Fund, many places that we enjoy would not exist. It's part of our cultural and conservation DNA, and it's an essential fabric of our American society.
Now we go to Colorado, where climate change means less snowmelt and higher water temperatures in rivers like the Yampa. Residents near the Yampa are determined to do what they can to save the river by cooling it down. Our story is reported by Jared Smith of Freshwater News.
We're here on the banks of the Yampa River in northwestern Colorado. It's a critical place in the Colorado Basin because this river provides a huge amount of clear, cool water in the American Southwest, a place where all rivers increasingly are being stressed by drought and climate change. The people of the Yampa Basin are very concerned about this river. They've watched its flows decline, they've watched its temperatures rise, and they're ready to take action.
The main objective of this project is to provide shade to lower the temperatures of the river. But at the same time, we want this riparian corridor to be as wide as possible to provide for other critters. This hole was dug yesterday, and we already have tracks. We're obviously going to have to fence this.
You guys have done an amazing amount of work this week. Why is that?
When our volunteers come, they really don't want to be spending time digging holes. They want to really be focused on planting the trees.
These holes that we're looking at, how many did you dig?
Well, we have 200 trees total, but we dug 100 holes because we'll be doing 2 trees per hole. We know that not every tree is going to survive.
Carolina, what's your vision for what this area will look like in 10 years?
The vision is hopefully these cottonwoods will be 20, 30 feet tall, providing shade for the animals that use it and also outcompeting the reed canary grass, our vegetative nemesis.
The Yampa River is one of the last free-flowing rivers on the Colorado River system. So it has natural flow regimes that really help keep it healthy.
This is Kelly Romero-Heaney. She's the Director of Water Resources for the City of Steamboat Springs. The Yampa is a beautiful river, but it's struggling right now. Why?
What we found is that solar radiation, the strength of the sun is an even stronger driver for increasing stream temperature. And when you have a system that's lost a lot of its riparian forest.
And that's the area along the banks where the trees and the insects thrive.
Exactly, which provides the shade and the protection of this river. That's where we really saw the opportunity to provide that shade by planting some of the especially taller species.
Kelly, when the river is too hot, what is too hot?
In the summer season, when you see water temperatures exceed 75 degrees Fahrenheit, that gets really critical for particularly the trout species and the native mountain whitefish that exist in this river.
The Yampa River is a key driver of the economy here in Steamboat Springs in the basin. It runs right through the middle of town. How important is it?
Oh, the Yampa River is key. I mean, not only for the fly fishing outfitters and the rafting companies, but it's also a place that people just love to gather.
I was probably 7 or 8 years old when I started fishing, and I grew up downtown so I could walk from my house to the river. Stick on the smaller size.
This is Johnny Spillane. He's the owner of Steamboat Fly Fisher.
When the water temperatures gets to a certain level, the city shuts down the river to both public use and commercial operations to help preserve the health of the fishery.
And what does that mean for your business?
Well, it means we can't go fishing.
Fishing's really good on the Colorado right now.
Our bread and butter of the Yampa can get shut down.
If you could make a wish for the next 5 years, what would your wish be?
I'd like to see some real meaningful steps toward mitigating climate change. I think that we need to act now, and we need to do it quickly.
How many other businesses do you think rely on the river here in town?
I mean, there's got to be a dozen. And not only that, you have the ranchers for, everything that they're using the water for.
The work we're doing up here is primarily focused on reducing the amount of erosion occurring along the riverbanks.
This is Tully Miller. He is a river restoration expert. So the Glass Deferin Ranch is home to a critical reach of the Yampa. And the owners of the ranch have hired you to help them restore this part of the river. What are you doing for them?
So you can kind of think of me as like an environmental general contractor. With our altitude here in Colorado, the sun is incredibly intense. And so the water column heats up quicker than it would if it was shaded by riparian vegetation that would naturally occur here.
Tully, this stretch of the river looks beautiful.
Well, it is beautiful. You're absolutely right. But there are a couple issues that I can clearly see from right here. There's an abundance of riparian vegetation on the other side of the channel and absolutely none on this side. And that poses a lot of problems for our downstream neighbors because every year, all of this beautiful topsoil we have here is unfortunately falling off and heading downstream, and which kind of, alters their ecosystem as well.
So how will you reshape this bank?
So first and foremost, what we have to do is take the brunt of the current and force it off of this bank. I like to say that we guide water. We can't tell water what to do, and so water will always flow perpendicular off an object. With that in mind, the way you install these rock figures in the water really will help deflect the current away from it.
So you reshape this side of the bank so that it can support the trees that will help shade the river and that will help stabilize the bank.
Absolutely correct.
What we found is stream flow releases from some of the smaller reservoirs in the system combined with the enhancement and preservation of our riparian forest. Those two things combined are predicted to help drive stream temperature down. And we hope this will really help buffer the Yampa River.
Welcome. Thank you so much for volunteering. Hi. Good to have you. You're right. We'll get you your lunch before and after.
Good job. The hardest part of the day is going to be getting across the river.
There's 0% chance that you're going to be dry.
What a beautiful day. Here we are on the Yampa River, not a cloud in the sky.
Nice and slippery. The goal today is to plant 200 cottonwood trees. We'll have to plant, mulch, water, fence. We'll get a group going here on the middle one.
Okay, so we're gonna be putting 2 trees per hole. Just make sure they're on opposite sides of the hole.
I just really like giving back to the environment because we take so much from it.
So it's going to take a long time for these trees to grow. Can you be patient?
Yes. Yeah.
How much do you think it will help the river?
It'll help it by shading it and keeping the river colder.
Let's get it in the ground. I just wanted to bring him out here to, kind of expose him to this. And, he already has a love for Mother Earth.
Whatever you do, don't stop the baby.
I love bringing my older son, Luke, out to plant trees with me because then he can understand the importance of this river and what it takes to protect it. And we hope this will really help buffer the Yampa River against the impacts of climate change as we move into the future.
Scoot in, group picture, group picture.
And this is very much a Johnny Appleseed project. We plant trees today. The river may not see the benefit of that for 10, 20 years down the road, but we have to start today.
Now we have another story on the growing role of women in agriculture from a family farm in South Texas, where a young mother wears many hats, including raising a daughter who might very well take over the farm in the years ahead.
Looking back on how I grew up on a small ranch with a cattle operation, I knew what it was like for a dad to have an agriculture-based job. I knew what it was like to be an ag kid. There was a lot of hard work. My dad used to pay us a nickel if we filled a molasses tub, like the one I'm sitting on, full of thistles from the field. We did get him up to a quarter at one point. But his general thought was, you live here, you work here, this is part of the family, you know? We have one daughter, Samantha. She's now 9 years old. Sometimes people feel sorry for Jim because he doesn't have a boy, and they're like, oh, you're not gonna have anyone to leave the farm to. There's no reason she can't farm it. I think women's role in agriculture is evolving. So if she wants to come back and farm, she'll be more than able to. And I think that's probably different than a generation or two before. Beeville is in South Texas. It's south of San Antonio, and we're about 60 miles from the coast. Here we farm multiple different soil types. My husband and I farm about 4,500 acres. We do not own anywhere close to all of that. We own a couple hundred acres. So we rely heavily on good relationships with our landowners. We're planning a meal in the field. What we normally do are things that can be handheld. So these are jalapeno poppers. More garlic powder. I feel like my role on our family farm is a lot like most women's in that I wear multiple hats, just like most moms do. One way I help is to essentially be a taxi service and help them move from one place to another. Granddad, you want sweet tea?
Sure.
I bring food to the farm and give the guys a break during harvest. I help with advocacy, even speak at some events to try to help those that maybe did not grow up farming to know more about where their food and where their fiber comes from. Our goal on our family farm is to be able to continue the legacy that Jim's families on both sides have set, to be a family farm and to leave that to the next generation if they want it. To have a family farm that provides safe, quality, affordable food with the values of honesty, integrity, and hard work.
My granddad farmed about 800 acres, sent 3 children to college on that 800 acres. I'm Jim Shugaric. We're harvesting our last field of corn today. Today it's taking 4,000, 4,500 acres just to support one family. It's a huge difference than even 30 years ago. It just takes so much, and if any little hiccup, anything goes wrong, we have a well go down. It's a major problem. You're just operating on such thin margins. Well, some of those thin margins is reasons we're looking for new approaches to farming this land. About 10 years ago, we started partnering with the NRCS to try to implement some strip till on our tougher land. And what we're trying to do is retain as much of our, we call it trash, it's all the leftover residue, to cover the soil just like you would in a flower bed. So by cost sharing a newer practice like strip till, we are able to leave as much of this corn stubble on the left as we can. Without that stubble, without that trash, the whole field could get eaten up by one sandstorm.
NRCS comes in and educate us on things that maybe haven't been tried in our area.
With the NRCS, 2 years ago, we did an equip contract to cross fence this place and also add water.
As risky as farming is already, and if we're looking at commodity prices that are not good, we may not feel comfortable making that leap. They'll come in and say, let us pay for part of it, you pay for part of it. It's almost, I feel like, doing a research project at school. They want you to keep good records and things like that so that they can then take that and show other farmers this is working, or, you know, this isn't the best way to go. For farmers to continue to be a farm family, they have to evolve with the times. Farmers are smart. Most of them have degrees, and they can be very good at planting a seed. But if they're not doing all of the rest, researched, keeping up with technology and innovative practices like NRCS helps us with, they're not going to be sustainable. They're not going to be able to leave that farm to their daughter or their son if they're not keeping up with everything else that goes with farming.
Scientists often study and experiment with small creatures to learn about basic biological processes like evolution. In North Carolina, researchers are studying tiny spadefoot toads to learn more about what is called plasticity. In this Science Nation report from Miles O'Brien.
At the Fenig Lab at UNC Chapel Hill, it's time to feed the spadefoots. Adult toads have a distinct taste for crickets, while brine shrimp are on the menu for the tadpoles. They're called spadefoots because of this little shovel-like structure on their feet. They're sand burrowers, as you can see here. We sped this video up, but not by much.
This research is trying to get at that fundamental aspect of the living world, which is why the world is as diverse as it is.
So what could this humble little toad tell us about that? Turns out a lot. Spadefoots are master shapeshifters, able to make drastic changes to their forms and their behaviors in response to the environment. It's a concept called plasticity. With support from the National Science Foundation, evolutionary biologists David and Corinne Fenig and their teams study spadefoots to better understand the role plasticity plays in evolution.
A lot of times in science, if you want to understand something, you go find a really extreme example of the phenomenon that you're interested in.
The Fenigs go every year to Arizona to study the toads in the field and work with them year-round in the lab. David and his group focus on plasticity in tadpoles. Certain kinds of spadefoots come in two very different types or morphs, omnivores and carnivores.
They're so different that for many, many years, for decades, biologists thought that they were different species.
Omnivores are the smaller ones. They can eat pretty much anything. But if the tadpole happens to hatch in a pond rich in shrimp, some, but not all, will beef up big time. And it's not just shrimp. Carnivores will eat other tadpoles. But remember, they're the same species. Once they grow to adulthood, they look the same again.
There are different strategies for achieving the same end, which is propagating one's distinctive characteristics in the next generation.
Corinne and her team look at a different type of plasticity, behavioral, how adult females choose their mates. This is a so-called plain spadefoot, This guy is a Mexican spadefoot. A female plains can tell them apart by their calls. All things being equal, she'll mate within her own species, unless her pond is drying up. Then she might hybridize and mate with the Mexican spadefoot that's evolved to survive in a drier environment.
If the pond is shallow and is going to dry up really fast, so that if they mated with their own species, those tadpoles would die because they wouldn't get out, then they hybridize and they can produce fast-developing tadpoles that'll get out.
It comes with a cost. If a plain spadefoot interbreeds, all the males hatch from that clutch of eggs will grow up to be sterile.
Half of them might be sterile, but the females are going to be able to breed, and that's better than having no offspring at all.
The Fennigs say understanding plasticity is important because variation between individuals is what spurs the evolutionary process.
You know, traditionally we just assumed that the reason that individuals vary is because they have different genes. And what we want to know is, well, is there more to variation than just genes?
Turning to the little spadefoot toad for insights into the interplay between genetics, behavior, and the environment. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
And now here's a quick look at stories from our next show.
We are in Mammoth Cave. This is actually the longest cave in the world.
But there's a mammoth job here and in other national parks. Some of them have infrastructure stuck in the dark ages. Next time on This American Land.
That's all for now, and thanks for joining us. And be sure to listen to our podcast and check us out on social media. We'll see you next time on This American Land.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org, listen to our podcasts, and like us on Facebook. Funding for this program provided by the Walton Family Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.